Today's Transgender Day of Remembrance service was conceived and created by Tiki, who just sang. Tiki is a member of this congregation, an out and proud transgender person whose pronouns are they, them. This service has been shaped by Tiki with loving support from our music and worship arts teams. My dear ones, November 20th is the 25th Transgender Day of Remembrance. Fresno has long held a Transgender Day of Remembrance organized by the trans, non-binary, and gender-diverse community of Fresno. Today's service is in solidarity with Fresno's official ceremonial recognition, which will take place on this Wednesday at 6:45 at Fresno State. As always, that gathering is an act of remembrance and resistance. This morning, we remember our trans, non-binary, and gender-diverse beloveds who have been taken from us too soon, whether by violence or because they were no longer able to stay in a world that so often turned its back on them. We also recognize the long lineage of gender diversity across indigenous communities around the world, the two spirits of Native America, the Mache of Chile, Hijra of India, the Fa'afafine of Samoa, and so many more who have long existed beyond the binary, often taking on sacred roles such as shamans or spiritual teachers. May we hold the wisdom of these ancestors as a reminder of the sacred legacy that our trans, non-binary, and gender-diverse kin carry forward today. These reminders may, in fact, call us into urgent action in the coming months and years. So very real right now is the fear and pain of those who watched their very identity used intentionally as cruel leverage in our recent hate-fueled political campaigns. We know that in the first week following Election Day, there was a 700% increase in the number of calls to the Trevor Project, a suicide prevention hotline for LGBTQIA+ kids and youth. A 700% increase in our kids and our teens being terrified. Even now, some parents of trans children are actively seeking means to evacuate unsafe states. There is an underground network already built. Other trans people are hoping to escape the United States altogether and live somewhere safer. Some trans people are wondering if they will have the funds to stockpile necessary medications if they are no longer available. 26 states already prevent gender-affirming health care for young people, with fears that this might extend to adults. May we, as Unitarian Universalists, be ready to meet this moment by validating those fears, by rising with our trans, non-binary, and gender-diverse communities in righteous rage and in circulating them with love, using our collective voice every time their worthiness and dignity is questioned. In this spirit, our good friends from the ACLU have given us permission to share today their short film, A Trans History, Time Marches On and So Do We, a film that was originally produced in the first year of the previous Trump administration.
On a hot night in June 1969, police raided the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village, New York. But this time, rather than be arrested, the queens and street kids fought back. The riots that ensued are considered the beginning of the LGBTQ movement in America. But the movement has much deeper roots. 3 years before Stonewall, in August 1966, trans people at Compton's cafeteria in San Francisco also rioted against the police. Late at night, when trans people congregated there, police would routinely harass them in their sanctuary. But on this night, led by trans women and femmes of color, the community resisted. Similar but lesser-known uprisings occurred in Los Angeles at Cooper's Donuts in 1959, and at the Black Cat in 1967, and in Philadelphia at Dewey's Restaurant in 1965. There are probably many other such events yet to be uncovered. They remind us of our courageous history of resisting institutionalized bullying and oppression. In the decades that followed, trans people largely remained in the shadows, quietly contributing to society. Our community was still denied employment, housing, healthcare, and legal protection, essentially the basic right to live. Yet even when they were criminalized by anti-cross-dressing and anti-loitering laws, our transcestors, including Miss Major, Marsha P. Johnson, and Sylvia Rivera, and Flawless Sabrina, survived. They all spent time in jail because they dared to be themselves when our society made it a crime to deviate from gender norms. But time marched forward, and so did they, passing along their survival strategies. And today, trans people are more visible than ever. Though our lives and bodies are sometimes celebrated, we remain more often targeted. In schools, harassment often forces trans students to drop out. Federal and state governments act as bullies too, now rescinding guidance to schools on how to protect trans students and passing harmful laws banning trans people from common restrooms. Epidemics of homelessness, HIV, and incarceration constrain the survival opportunities for trans women of color. The murder rate of trans women of color increases with every passing year. Rather than invest in our survival, the new administration has attempted to both literally and figuratively delete us and has ignored requests to investigate the escalating violence against us. Only 18 states explicitly and comprehensively protect trans people from discrimination. Many other state lawmakers are focused on targeting us for more discrimination. In 2017, lawmakers in 22 states introduced more than 50 bills restricting the rights of trans people. Even as these lawmakers signal that we are not worthy of protection, we persevere. Most of us have already spent years in dark places wrestling with our truths, feeling ashamed of who we are. But when we manage to survive and even to love ourselves, we are stronger than ever. Try as they might, these lawmakers cannot erase us. Our rights will be hard won, but we are winning. Our community is resilient and our history of resistance runs deep. Following in the footsteps of Flawless, Major, Sylvia, Marsha, we fight back the way they did. We take care of each other, we tell our stories, and we demand justice. Join the fight, in courts, in state legislatures, in the streets, in the voting booths. Resistance is our birthright, the gift passed on from our elders. We carry the lessons of Cooper's, Stonewall, Compton's, and the many strategies that continue to give us hope and life. We have always existed, and we will continue to fight until we are all safe and free.
In a moment, Tiki is going to share a story about a Black trans woman by the name of Rita Hester. We both just wanted to let you know that this story includes violence, so hold your heart tenderly. Tiki.
She was Mama. A day in the life of Rita Hester through Coco's eyes. As dawn broke on November 27, 1998, soft light poured into the apartment on Baird Street in Boston, Massachusetts, illuminating the vibrant spirit of my beloved Mama, Rita Hester. I, Coco, stirred in my cozy bed, ears perked at the familiar sound of the radio flicking on, The opening notes of Ain't Nobody by Shaka Khan filled the air, wrapping around me like a warm embrace. Her voice joined the melody strong with the beat. Good morning, Coco. You ready for another fabulous day? Her sparkling gray eyes smiled. She whisked her braids playfully. Over her shoulder, a stylish jacket draped over her fitted blouse. She looked like all that and a bag of chips. Mama loves you, and she loves the snakes too. She leaned down to greet her slithery pets, planting gentle kisses on their smooth scales before preparing breakfast and petting me on the head. The aroma of coffee grounds greeted my button nose as she poured herself a cup and opened a can of cat food for me. She grabbed her bag and slipped on her knee-high boots with excitement all snappity-snap and pep. Time to work hard for the money. Mama worked at the Blue Moon Diner. I jumped to the window and watched her walk away. My tail waved. Then the day turned dark. She came home and it was twilight. I heard strange noises, footsteps, a struggle, banging. The furniture rattled, the noises grew louder. Then came a piercing scream, followed by another. It was my mama's terrified cry. My heart raced as I realized something was horribly wrong. I could hear the struggle, a thump, and then silence. The wait felt like hours as I huddled in my hiding spot, desperate for reassurance. Finally, the police arrived, sirens blaring, but I knew the damage was done. I heard footsteps and voices, but not Mama's. I smelled sweat. I smelled blood. I heard silence. Mama! I wanted to meow, but waited silently in the dark. Strange men rushed in. I saw her lying on the floor, the vibrant light in her eyes dimming. She was still breathing, but I could feel the life slipping away from her. My heart broke for my beautiful mama. Her laughter, now shallow breaths, gasping for air. The piercing stabs of a knife took more than just her life. It stole the joy and vibrancy of her. I held on to every memory we shared, but soon the light in her eyes faded, and my world turned to shadows. Rita was gone, taken too soon. The warmth of our home was lost, leaving a chilling silence behind. The love we shared now felt like a haunting memory, and I mourned not just for myself and the snakes, but the light extinguished without mercy. To many, she was Rita Hester, entertainer, activist, waitress, family, and queen. To me, she was Mama, as remembered by Coco, her beloved cat.
Today, we remember Rita Hester, born into this world on November 30th, 1963. Rita was a transgender Black woman who was brutally murdered in Boston on November 28, 1998. She was daughter, an animal lover, a waitress, and a popular Boston entertainer. Rita's life, like so many others, was full of dreams, hopes, full of contributions, and so full of love. And yet, Rita became a target of violence simply because of her identity. In the aftermath of Rita's murder, the LGBTQ community in Boston gathered in grief, in anger, and in solidarity. On December 4th, just days after her murder, 250 people came together in a candlelight vigil, demanding that her life, her identity, and her truth as a trans woman be respected and honored by the local media that was disparagingly misgendering her. Those gathered lit candles to pierce the night, a symbolic stand against the forces that seek to erase transgender, non-binary, and gender-diverse lives. It was a moment of unity, a call for justice, and a spark that ignited a movement of remembrance. As reported by GLAAD, the Gay Legal Advocates and Defenders Organization, our nation's first Transgender Day of Remembrance was held in Boston the following year, in November of 1999, 25 years ago. Held in Rita Hester's memory, it was co-organized by transgender advocates Gwendolyn Ann Smith, Nancy Nageroni, and Jeraya De Alto. GLAAD reports that the vigil commemorated all the transgender, non-binary, and gender-diverse people lost to violence since Rita Hester's death the year prior. And that day began the important tradition that's now celebrated worldwide on November 20th. Gwendolyn Ann Smith, co-founder of Transgender Day of Remembrance, said, "This day seeks to highlight the losses we face due to anti-transgender bigotry and violence. I'm no stranger to the need to fight for our rights, and the right to simply exist is first and foremost. With so many seeking to erase transgender people, sometimes in the most brutal ways possible, it is," she said, "vitally important that those we lose are remembered and that we continue to fight for justice." In the year from October 23rd to September 2024, 59 transgender, non-binary, and gender-diverse lives were lost to violence in the United States, with many, many others unreported. There were 356 global deaths, with so many, many going unreported. That doesn't begin to account for attacks, beatings, bullying, eviction, loss of employment. Every statistic represents a person with dreams, a person with loved ones, a person with worthiness. These murders confront us with the reality that transgender, non-binary, and gender-diverse individuals face extraordinary levels of discrimination and violence. As Unitarian Universalists, as people of compassion, we are called to look directly at this injustice and ask ourselves, what can we do? How can we help bring these numbers down to zero? It also heightens how important and vital is our congregation's welcome and celebration of trans, non-binary, and gender-diverse persons. UU Fresno can truly be a much-needed sanctuary. Statistics paint a heartbreaking picture. 74% of transgender, non-binary, or gender-diverse victims were people of color. 48% were Black transgender women, and 63 were killed with a gun. This speaks to the intersection of multiple layers of marginalization, of racism, of transphobia, of genderphobia, and of far too easy access to firearms. Black transgender women, in particular, bear the brunt of violence in this country. We must work to dismantle the structures of discrimination that make them targets of violence. A tragic 38% of those killed knew their killer. The killer was someone close, a romantic partner, a friend, a family member. This pain is compounded when, even in death, 37% were misgendered or dead-named by authorities and the media. Rita Hester's life and death, and that of another Black trans woman, Chanel Pickett, murdered 3 years prior to Rita's death, sparked the Transgender Day of Remembrance, a day born out of the demand for dignity, respect, and truth. Today we honor that demand. We say that we see transgender, non-binary, and gender-diverse lives fully and respectfully. We commit to upholding their truth, even when others refuse to do so. In that spirit, I invite Riva and Ezra to join me for the Litany of Remembrance.
Say their names. Each life lost to violence and injustice represents a beloved soul. These are people who were loved and who loved, people whose lives had meaning and purpose. Their deaths should mean something to us. They should ignite our resolve. Let us not forget them. Let us honor their lives, remember their deaths, and fight with renewed energy against the injustices that claim transgender lives. Let us remember their deaths. The injustice against transgender and gender diverse people is still our fight today. The battle for dignity, respect, and equality is ongoing.
We invite you to join in saying their names. As we read each name, let us speak with love, and let us reaffirm our commitment to a world where each person's truth is honored, protected, and celebrated.
Alan O'Donnell. Skylar Harrison Reeves. Rani Baker. China Long. Chris Velasquez.
Dominique Dupree, Dominique Palace. Ani Robertson. River Page Olmsted. Lisa Love Turman. London Price.
Maya Finch. Naomi McNew. Lola LaPerla Ebony McDaniels. Shandon Floyd. Amiri Jean Reed.
Kaywan Richardson. Savannah Ryan Williams. Madison Montana. Care Hansen. Trip Schultz.
Amber Minor. Megan Riley Lewis. Lexus Walker, Kitty Monroe, Quinn Joy,
James Moen, Sasha Williams, Africa Paria Garcia Emma, Nex Benedict, Noah Jackson Chase,
Ashton Miles Clatterbuck, Righteous Torrance T.K. Hill Chevy, Diamond Brigman, Alex Franco, Maraxes Medina,
Yaya Clark, T. Arnold Lagan Billions Ace, Nivea Goddard Phoenix, Basil Brown, Memphar Brown,
Andrea Doria Dos Passos, Alistair Matthews, Dari Moore, Keita B, Jaslyn Johnson,
Tay Dior Thomas, Michelle Henry, Layara Kaylee Thai, M. Tapia, Paulie Likens,
Kenji Samantha Spurgeon, Shannon Boswell, Monique Brooks, Jade Monique Thompson, Dylan Gurley, Vanity Williams,
Tavion Lathan, Indiana Grayson, Kasim Omar, Barbie Iceland Red China.
Since the original creation of this remembrance, 10 additional names of transgender, gender diverse, and non-binary individuals have emerged. Each of these names is a reminder of lives cut short, of futures stolen by violence and the crushing weight of marginalization. But this list is heartbreaking as it is, but does not stay static. Names are added daily.
This reality calls on us as a community to rise in compassion and action, to hold space for the grief and honor the resilience of our transgender, gender diverse, and non-binary siblings. Let us commit together to a world where these names no longer need to be read, where each person is safe, seen, and celebrated for who they are.
Let us say together these 10 precious names.
Adrian Fox Bollinger, Adri. Cecilia Gentili, Catherine Maria Otterston, Kathy Otter, Ev Smith, Joshua Chemo Rainforest Larangning Meller Jr. Rain,
Lynn Ann Conway, Cass Trastero, Blair Kritz Christoph, Giselle Stone, Willila Elizabeth Lyab Gigi.
How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your living and your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to our soul. Que así sea, bendito sea. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.